18 months now. So fairly new. I'll tell you one of the big things I care a lot about, one of my main focuses on this idea of transparency. I've learned a ton in 18 months because we've done an enormous amount on transparency, meaning meetings, trying to meet people where they are, trying to have more meetings, things like that. And that's been somewhat successful, but not that successful. So I think one of the things in my mind is that transparency doesn't just mean when can I meet with someone. It means how do I understand what the heck's going on. So if you just think about some of the things that people have said in this meeting, what they were really saying is, how do I know? Why is that going on? Something was said a few minutes ago about a school bond. How's that being spent? We don't know how that's being spent. I'm paraphrasing, so I apologize if I got that wrong. But the point is, there's actually a lot of information. I don't follow that. That's school. I'm not that involved with the school board, but I know that there's a lot of that information available. So what's really being said, in my opinion, is I don't know how to get at that information in an understandable way. I had a career. I was 21 years as an auditor, and then auditing very large multinational corporations, and then about 5 years as CFO for a large multinational corporation. So my job in both of those roles, one of the big parts of my job was explaining very complex financial operations to a board of directors in the 1 hour time slot that I was given once a quarter, right? So I'll tell you there's a whole thing about, I'm sorry my letter is so long. If I had more time, I would have made it more concise, right? That's the challenge. How does this, because there's reams and reams of information. Someone talked about, I want to see computer printouts and I need to understand this information, right? That's the challenge. I think some big things on transparency is to understand, is people understand what's going on. Utility bills was brought up. I saw some posts on social media about people saying, hey, my utilities bills, I think it's too high. Why is it so high? And there was some posts going back and forth, people with 1 or 2 sentence responses, almost all of which was false information. Almost all of it. And you guys have seen all this. Someone puts out some false information, somebody else builds on that with some additional false information, and someone else summarizes the false information and makes an assertion that's false, and on it goes. You just look at these things and you think, oh my goodness, how do you help these people actually know information? I think that's a big part of the challenge when we talk about transparency. By the way I solved that with the guys, I said, I'll meet with you if you'd like. And that person said, great. So 2 days ago, I met with him for coffee for an hour, and I just walked through what was going on with the snow, with the utility bills in Snoqualmie. It wasn't at all what he thought it was. By the way, why can't we just, one of his points was, why can't we just have, why does it more of the bill have to do with how much water I use? Why so much of it seem to be fixed? Well, I walked through the answer. By the way, guess what? In Snoqualmie, the majority of your utility bill isn't for water, it's for sewer. How are we going to meter sewer? So I'm thinking it was proposing that. But the point is just all the information that it takes to really understand what's going on. We're in the middle of a huge $50 million project to take care of 50 plus years of neglect in downtown Snoqualmie. We've got wooden water mains that are falling apart. Some big truck's going to run across them one day and it's all just going to cave in. We're trying to get to that. We've got sewer lines that run uphill. Lots of things that need to be taken care of because it hasn't been taken care of for a long, long time. The good news is we've got a much bigger city now, we can afford that. The bad news is we need to afford that. But anyway, but by the way, one other thing I want to say, and I'll just touch on this quickly too, is you're a progressive organization. I just want to make this point. No growth is not a progressive position. I've never heard any progressive organization take a no growth point of view. That's the opposite end of the political spectrum. What progressives generally are very focused on is what is that growth going to be? Questions like, how are we going to take care of seniors? How are we going to deal with people that are on fixed incomes? How are we going to take care of people at the lower end of the economic strata who can't afford to live anywhere near where they work? And by the way, the impacts that has on our transportation system and our air quality, etc. So I think I think that what's critically important as we think about the remaining growth area, oh, and by the way, this idea that we'll get developers to pay for something, well, nothing's being developed. Developers aren't paying for anything. It's just us. And by the way, Sean talked about property taxes in Snoqualmie. Between 40 and 50% of our total revenue, capped by law, by state law, at 1% a year. Over 2/3 of our city budget pays salaries. Guess what our average, most of them are union employees, guess what the average pay increase is from what, so that's more than 2/3 of the budget, average pay increases every year. It's over 3%. How are you gonna pay the employees? We're gonna just lay off another employee every year until we don't have any employees left? So there's problems that have to be solved there, and property taxes is a big sort of problem. Now, your property tax bill, Sean's right, it's a rounding error, the amount that goes to the city, it's a very small amount. But property taxes is a big problem for everyone, every government that's built on taxes, because it's capped, it's limited, and it's a very regressive tax, right? It hits everyone in an equal dollar amount. It percentage-wise means it hits those with the lowest incomes the hardest. Okay, so what do I want to do about it? I'm running because I think I haven't memorized my speech yet. It's still early in the cycle. I don't have a primary, so it's not till November, so forgive me. But I think Snoqualmie is an exceptional community where families thrive. That's the big thing about Snoqualmie. Now, there's some future things we need to deal with, but that's what it is now. It's one of the highest percentage of residents under 18 in the state. So what I want to do, I want to be part of preserving that and trying to continue that success continues for the population that's there, while taking care of that population as it ages, taking care of the people that work here, and so on. So 3 big priorities that I have. One is improving traffic. The traffic problems we have in Snoqualmie are not on the internal streets inside the boundaries of the city of Snoqualmie. I never get into a traffic jam trying to get to the Safeway. I get there just fine. I get into a traffic jam when I try to leave the city. The huge problem that we have with traffic is that cities have been required for decades to fairly concurrently, there's some issues with concurrence, but fairly concurrently build the infrastructure to handle the buildings that go up. Guess who's responsible for all of the roads between the cities? Not the cities, the state and the county. There's been no requirement for them to build things on a concurrent basis, and this is where we have huge problems. So, we've got problems that need to get fixed. I want to improve traffic, particularly the I-90 SR18 interchange. Secondly, we have to I would like to see us continue to improve our community facilities, parks, open spaces. We've got a fantastic, I can go into detail, but I don't have the time. What we have is fantastic, but we do a lot better, especially in the facilities area. A lot of these facilities were built when the city was half the size it is, and that's all that can be afforded. We can afford more now. I'd like to see that happen. And then I'd like to see, thirdly, I'd like to be involved in steering the community's determination of what a financially sustainable future Snoqualmie looks like. So things like what Sean talked about, what are we going to do with this Snoqualmie Hills area, the remaining growth areas? And by the way, progressives generally are very much in favor of the Growth Management Act. That says we're going to limit growth to specific areas that are defined. That's where the growth goes, not sprawl everywhere else. So there is growth area that's adjacent to Snoqualmie. There's one big chunk of urban growth area left. It's not annexed yet into the city, so Sean didn't quite say it right. It belongs to the county now. We can annex it and then determine as a city what will happen. I'd like the community to be heavily involved with describing what do we want that to look like, what kind of housing, what kind of facilities, and so forth. Those are kind of my big 3 things. I think I'm out of time, right?
Sure.
Okay.
Sure.
Any questions for Jamie?
I have one question. Okay, you.
As an ex-CFO, are you comfortable with the software that the city is using?
Well,
And how old is it?
it's really interesting that in my entire career, I'll tell you this, any problem that my accounting staff ever had was because of the software. Okay, so I'm a little jaded. The city's using some fairly old software, but the accounting rules haven't changed since that software went in. I don't use that software, so I can't tell you for sure. My suspicion is that it wasn't set up well, and that they're facing the question, do I spend a bunch of money kind of fixing it, or do we actually, for just a little bit more, get a brand new modern system? I think that's where they're at. In any event, the city has funded in the capital budget, they've already funded replacement software for the accounting system. So my own view is, okay, I guess that's the path to go on. Did I get it, what you were trying to ask?
Well, I've been to several of the council meetings and I've seen the spreadsheets up there, and as a old construction accountant, I'm looking at your spreadsheets and it seems quite outdated to me. And this issue with your events coordinator, the overbillings, it's like I wanted to see, an over-under cost that could have been caught monthly and probably a year earlier. So I found that to be a flaw in your system, and was wondering when the city was going to upgrade their software to make it better for accountability for everybody to see.
Yeah, so let me be clear on my answer. So first off, all that happened before I was on the city council, those problems. I can't really speak for them, other than to tell you that I see many of the same problems you just described in terms of some of the financial data, particularly that's presented at the council level. Most of that doesn't come from the accounting system. It's derived from the accounting system, but then someone puts together a presentation. That's where the challenge is. I will tell you this, I don't believe that a different accounting system would have anything to do with solving the problem you just described, which had to do with some overbillings, okay? Those are questions of internal control, meaning, guess what? We were able to control spending 200 years ago. We were able to control spending 100 years ago. It's very easy to set something up. So here's a bill, all right? I'm gonna approve this bill so it gets paid. Maybe it comes from you, right? I can't approve this bill. I can say my part is correct. Now someone else is responsible for double checking the numbers, and somebody else is responsible for double checking that matches to the PO. So those are things that people do, not things that systems do. Yes, systems could maybe automate some of it, but guess what? We can do it just fine with people. And so I think solving internal control problems is something to do with people. We don't need different systems.
Okay, thank you. I've got Chelsea a chance here to throw us out. Go ahead.
Hi, my name is Chelsea Rubis. My family and I have lived in the valley for about 6 years. I have 4 kids in 3 of Snoqualmie Valley schools. I have a 15-year-old at Mount Si, and a 13-year-old who will be going to SMS, a 10-year-old and a 6-year-old, 10-year-old going into 5th grade, and a 6-year-old going into 1st grade at Snoqualmie Elementary School. I'm also an undergraduate student full-time at Central Washington University, studying social science and also accessibility studies. I'm literally studying what those disconnections are in information processing, in the built environment, between people, with a particular interest in marginalized groups, such as the aging population and the very young population, and people of color, and people who are not citizens. My son, who is 10, has a rare type of dwarfism. He does not walk. He uses a mobility scooter. In fact, in the Snoqualmie Valley schools, I usually go by Chelsea, but a lot of people know me as Kai's mom because he's the famous one and I'm just there to tote the accoutrements. I am running for school board for the same reasons really that Linda mentioned. That accessibility piece. Until just a couple of years ago, the school board in my mind was a nebulous entity that was faceless that I really didn't think much about. And I bring that perspective to the school board, so I know what it's like as a parent to wonder who is making decisions about my kids. You know, I do have so much else on my plate. I don't want to have to worry about that, but at the same time, I know I should, but what does that look like? And so I know where people are. I know what people are. I know what parents are thinking. I know what their concerns are. And more importantly, I know what students' concerns are. I've spent a significant amount of time, hundreds of hours, mentoring Snoqualmie Valley's youth, including Councilmember Sunwall's daughter, Callie. I'm heavily involved in mentoring particularly preteen girls ages 11 to 13. Spend a lot of time empowering them, helping them understand that their voice matters, that they have tremendous potential in the future. But the reason I'm running right now is my son with his mobility impairments, I've had to educate myself about what the Americans with Disabilities Act says, what his rights are, and I've noticed glaring problems in the built environment of our schools. Our schools are not ADA compliant. There are even state laws that they are not complying with. And if my son was upstairs at Chief Keenum Middle School and a fire broke out, everybody could get out of that school except for him. I've been there. And I conducted undergraduate research about this very issue, the emergency evacuation of mobility impaired students in multi-story school buildings, and found that our school is not measuring up. And to me, that's a huge problem. The Americans with Disabilities Act is not a new law. It was written in 1990. There have been 30 years for the schools to be compliant and for the schools to make sure that not just my son, but that all of you as community members, as you age, you still have the opportunity to get into the building the same way that I do or any other student does. And so that was really the main driver for me in jumping into this race. But since I've been out there talking with parents at the playground, at the coffee shop. I'm where they are, not waiting for them to come to me. I'm going to them. And the things that they're talking about are actually very different than the things that the school board has mentioned. And I think that's, again, a function of that accessibility piece where there's just too much of a disconnect between what the board wants and what those parents, communities, and students need. And I can bridge that gap because I'm in both places. And I have developed that lens of whose voice is missing, who are we not hearing from, and how does this affect the people who are on low income? How does this affect students who have mobility impairments, who have cognitive impairments, students who have special medical needs? I know my son being he can't go to the bathroom by himself. He requires help. Fortunately, we have a wonderful nurse at Snoqualmie Elementary School, but she's divided between SES and Cascade View. And the days that she's not there, I just found last year we had some additional help. But at the end of this year, my son told me, Mom, on the days that Nurse Ann isn't there, Michelle helps me. Michelle is the secretary. Michelle has 100,000 other things that she should be doing. She should not be wiping the bottom of a 10-year-old boy. Now, thank heavens, I know Michelle personally. I've known her for almost a decade. She's trustworthy, she's wonderful, and if I have to have anybody in a bathroom with my son while his pants are down, I would want it to be her, but that is not her job. And yes, the dollars are finite, but what in the world are we spending them on if we cannot take care of our most vulnerable students? Literally vulnerable. Questions? Yes.
Did you contact the school board with your concerns?
That's very interesting. That's a great question. Thank you, Carolyn. I contacted the principal. I've talked with the school. I have a very open relationship with the principal. The messaging that I've received from the principal, and I would even go so far as to say from the superintendent, who granted he was new at the time and he didn't have a working relationship with the board at the time, the overwhelming message that I got was, do not go to the school board. They will not listen to you. They will not hear you. And if that is the culture that is coming from the staff, I don't want to get anybody in trouble, but this was staff. Because I asked, how do we fix this? Because as a parent, I want to fix this. I'm ready. In fact, I went, using my undergraduate status, I went and got an internship with U.S. Senator Patty Murray's office to learn about the ADA, to learn about advocacy, so that I could shoulder that burden. And when I was ready, I was going to come to the school board and say, look, here's what I've done. Here's my plan. Here's the funding I have in place. Let's fix this problem. In the meantime, I got the opportunity to run for school board and thought, you know what? I can't pass that up. My son's gonna be 14 the next time this opportunity comes around. I can't miss this. So to answer your question, no, I didn't. Because the people that I trust told me not to. And I think that speaks volumes.
Because your communication,
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. Any other questions? Yeah.
I've spoken to Mother Ridge, who expressed some alarming concerns to me that we don't have ADA compliant public parks within the city limits.
Oh, that's a tough one. So, and this speaks more to the way the ADA, there's concessions were made with the ADA. The ADA is not the all and all. The parks are ADA accessible according to what the ADA requires. The ADA requires, if there's one upper feature, there has to be a lower feature. That could be something like those pegs that move around in like a maze. So there are equivalencies, but we know that's not adequate. And the city is working really hard on building an accessible park. And I'm on the Parks and Events Commission, and we are talking about what would it look like if we built into the city's plan that as parks are improved, accessibility features are added that include things like ramps up to the slide and fully accessible parks, which I think the school district can and should do also.
Maybe
Yeah.
Mr. Mayhew can jump in, but I believe there's a park downtown Riverview Park, which is scheduled for remodel next year.
Mm-hmm.
Are you interested in working with the city in that front to ensure that that park, as it's updated, is more compliant?
Absolutely, yeah, absolutely. And I know one of the most expensive things to do that actually improves accessibility tremendously is just getting rid of those bark chips. Kids that are on wheels, grown-ups that are, it's not just kids either. We have parents who are wheelchair users and grandparents who can't, my dad has Parkinson's disease. He cannot lift his feet to step up steps. He has to shuffle, and a ramp is much more conducive to his mode of transportation. Port in place, which is the solid surfacing, is the most expensive part of updating these parks. And so that's a piece that really limits the scope of a project when you're looking at so much to just put the groundwork in. But yeah, I think it's doable. I think we just need a different perspective. We need some fresh ideas and someone who's an advocate for both the little guy and the big guy. Yeah.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
absolutely. Yeah,
Okay.
thank you.
Unfortunately, our time's up.